10:27 a.m. The clock on the wall hasn't moved, but I know the hour has changed because the light outside has shifted again. It's no longer gray, no longer just dust. The air has turned a strange yellow, like sunlight filtered through dirty glass. It makes every shadow on the street look wrong, stretched too long for the angle of the morning. My name is still Evan Rook, still talking to you from the basement of the old library on 3rd Street, Reading, still leaning on the same generator hum and the same antenna that sways when the aftershocks roll through. This is 92.7 FM, and if the valley isn't swallowing the signal whole, maybe you're hearing me on 7:10 a.m. If you can hear me, hold on to that. If the static swallows me, tune slowly, and don't let go too fast. You might catch me again, like a whisper between cracks. I've been thinking about silence. Yesterday, silence meant the pause between sirens, the moment when the alarms cut, and you wondered if the next sound would be worse. Today, silence is different. It's wider. It's the absence of the voices we grew up trusting. The county, the state, the national channels, they're gone. When I scan the dial, I get nothing but white noise and the occasional pulse of some coded signal I can't understand. It's as if the country swallowed its tongue, and into that silence come people like you, voices cracked, steady, frightened, sometimes clear as a bell, sometimes just half a sentence before the line goes dead. I'll carry every one of them. At 9:58, a woman named Carla called from the east side of Red Bluff. She said she was standing outside with her son when the ground gave a slow, rolling shudder. Not violent, not sharp, but like the world sighing. She said the asphalt under their feet buckled like a rug, and she saw the paint stripes bend. She watched her own shadow split in two across the crack, and she said she thought for a moment she was being pulled apart. Her boy started crying, and then stopped, and she told me, he said, "The ground is tired." She said she didn't know what to tell him, so she held him until it passed. A trucker named Wayne got through on the handheld at 10:06. He said he was coming down from Oregon on I-5 when the first shock hit yesterday, and he hasn't stopped driving since. He's running his rig as long as the diesel holds. He said he's seen the freeway peel open in sections, like books falling open on a desk. At one point near Eureka, he said the asphalt had risen into a ridge, and he had to back the truck down and take a side road. He said he doesn't know where he's going anymore. Just south. Always south. His voice was tight, and he kept repeating the same sentence. The road isn't straight anymore. The road isn't straight anymore. Closer to home, a volunteer named Mason stopped by the library door with a bundle of old maps, county maps, fire evacuation routes, trail charts. He said, "The streets on these don't match the streets outside anymore." And he's right. 3rd doesn't meet Market the way it used to. The line has shifted. The cracks have drawn new boundaries, reshaped the grid. He wants to start charting the new map, a living one, with the names of who is left and where they are. He said, "If the land's going to rewrite itself, we might as well keep up." He left the maps on the step, and I'll use them. If you're hearing this, if you're still moving, start keeping notes of where the streets break and where they bend. One day, if we're still here, we'll need to know where the ground still holds. And then there's the stories that hurt to repeat, but I will. At 10:14, the copper line rang once, and a voice came through, cracked, hoarse, an older man who said his name was Douglas. He said he was at the sundial bridge when it buckled. Said the arch leaned, the glass walkway splintered. He tried to pull a woman back, but the tilt carried her forward. He told me, The river swallowed her like it had been waiting. He said he can still see her red scarf floating downstream, caught on driftwood. He asked me to say her name, and then the line died before he gave it. If you're listening, Douglas, if you find your way back to this line, bring me her name. I'll keep it safe. Rumors keep circling, and I'll tell you what I've heard, though you'll need to hold them at arm's length. People are saying the dams are straining. Shasta, Oroville, Folsom. That inspectors pulled back before the first shock and never returned. That convoys of dark vehicles have been spotted on back roads, carrying equipment nobody recognizes. One man told me he saw helicopters hovering low at night with their lights blacked out, only the hum of the rotors carrying across the sky. He swore they were watching the ground, not the people. Maybe it's paranoia. Maybe it's truth. In the absence of answers, even the strangest theory grows teeth. At 10:22, a boy no older than 10 came to the library door with a piece of chalk. He walked up the steps, knelt down, and wrote a name right on the stone. Marissa. Then he looked at me through the glass and walked away without saying a word. I've written it here too. Marissa. If you hear this, if you're alive, know your name is out in the air. The list of names grows every hour. I'll read some now. Carla, Red Bluff, holding her boy. Wayne, trucker, still heading south. Mason, with the maps, ready to draw a new grid. Douglas, Sundial Bridge, survivor with a name unfinished. Marissa. Name chalked on the library steps. Every name I say is another line across the silence. Every voice I hear is proof we haven't slipped away entirely. The generator's hum is lower now. I've been rationing the fuel, cutting power to the lights between hours. I sit in the dark with only the dial glow, waiting for the next call, the next knock, the next scrap of paper under the door. My throat is raw. My hands ache from writing. My eyes burn from the dust. But I'll keep talking. I'll keep telling you what I know, what I hear, what people trust me with. If you're listening, stay awake. Stay aware. Put on shoes before you step outside. Keep a bag ready. Write the names of who you're with and where you're going. Leave them where others can see. Because this city is breaking. But if we carry each other's names, maybe we can outlast the silence. This is Evan Rook in the basement of the library on 3rd, Reading. Still here. Still speaking. Still holding on by a thread of wire and a few drops of diesel. 11:32 a.m. The generator just groaned again. I've cut the overhead light to save what little fuel is left, so I'm sitting here with only the glow from the radio panel, my notebook, and the weak daylight that leaks through the stairwell door. The dust outside is thicker now, carried on a dry wind that smells of stone and rust. It's turning the sun into a pale coin, dull and weak, and it makes the whole street look like it's trapped under dirty glass. My name is still Evan Rook. I'm still here in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. If you've tuned in for the first time, this is 92.7 FM, maybe a fragile thread of signal on 7:10 a.m. if you're farther out. In the last hour, I've heard voices that stayed with me. I'll tell you about them, because silence kills quicker than the shaking, and their words deserve to live longer than the lines we share. At 10:48, the copper line rang, and it was a woman named Janine from Anderson. She said she had been sheltering with her husband and their 2 kids in a church hall, the kind with a low roof and folding chairs stacked against the wall. She said, after the second big shock yesterday, cracks opened in the floor tiles like lightning bolts. She tried to stay calm for the kids, but the cracks kept spreading, and by this morning, the whole hall tilted. You could feel it, she told me, like the building wanted to slide into the earth. Her voice trembled, then steadied. She said they left before sunrise, carrying what they could, but her husband slipped on the church steps as another tremor hit. He twisted his leg badly. She said he can't walk now, and she's carrying the load for all 4 of them. Every block feels like a mile, she whispered, and the ground won't stop moving. She asked me to say their names: Janine, her husband Paul, their children Rose and Calvin. I'm saying them now. Then, at 11:02, a man named Stephen called from near Cottonwood. He said he's been trying to keep his small store open as long as possible, handing out food by hand when the registers died. But when people realized the shelves were empty, they turned on each other. He said he locked the door and watched them fight over a bag of rice outside. He couldn't open it again. He said, "I always thought hunger would make people desperate. I didn't know it would make them quiet." He described the way they pulled at each other without speaking, just grunts and tears. His voice broke when he said one of the men was his neighbor, a man who used to mow his lawn. Stephen said he doesn't know if he did the right thing, staying behind glass while his neighbor's face turned red under another man's grip. He asked me if I thought he was a coward. I told him I thought he was alive, and that's what mattered. His name, Stephen, now lives in the air with the rest. And then there was a boy named Marcus, maybe 12, calling from Corning around 11:17. His voice was thin but steady, and he said he and his little sister were sitting in their mother's car in a field, waiting for her to come back. She'd left the night before to look for fuel. She hadn't returned. He said he kept turning the key in the ignition to hear the radio hum, because it made him feel less alone. He asked me if I could say his sister's name, Clara, because he wanted her to hear it if she was awake. "Clara, your brother Marcus is waiting. He's alive. He's keeping the signal alive for you. Those are the testimonies, the voices carried here, like pieces of broken glass, sharp and bright. Now I'll tell you what I've seen myself." I walked to the top of the stairwell and stood behind the library door for 5 minutes, watching. The cracks on 3rd Street have widened overnight. They're not just thin lines anymore. They're deep enough that you can't see the bottom, and wide enough that a car couldn't cross. The people who move past them don't even try to fill them or step over. They go around in silence, hugging the walls, their faces gray with dust. The power lines above hang slack, swaying with each tremor, and sometimes you hear a snap as one lets go, followed by the thud of a transformer blowing out. No one even looks up anymore. The sounds of collapse have become part of the background. There's a stillness on Market Street that doesn't feel right. Yesterday you could hear people shouting, arguing, scavenging. Today it's quiet, but not safe. Doors are left open. Cars are abandoned with their doors hanging wide. I saw a stroller tipped on its side near the old diner. No one near it. No sound. Just stillness. I've started to notice the birds are gone. Not just fewer of them. Gone. Yesterday morning I saw a flock lift off over the river. Today the sky is empty. That emptiness is louder than any tremor. And here's something stranger. Twice now, at 10:59, and again at 11:21. I've felt a vibration under my feet that didn't match the aftershocks. Not a jolt, not a roll, but a steady hum, low and constant, lasting 10 or 15 seconds. It felt almost mechanical, like a giant machine buried under the city. I wouldn't mention it if I hadn't felt it twice, and if callers like Marcus and Janine hadn't said similar things. One said it made their teeth buzz. Another said it made the glass in their windows ring like a bell. Whatever it is, it's not random. The ground is speaking in patterns now, and we're too small to understand them. I don't know if there's anyone left in charge. I don't know if Sacramento is still standing, or if Washington even knows what's happening here. No alerts, no broadcasts, no orders, only us. Only names carried by voices, written on scraps of paper, scrawled in chalk. So I'll read more names now. Because names are what we have left. Janine, Paul, Rose, and Calvin, the family walking block by block. Stephen, the storekeeper in Cottonwood, still behind glass. Marcus and Clara, waiting in the car, keeping the radio alive. Douglas, who saw the river swallow a woman and still owes me her name. Marissa, written in chalk on the library steps. Speak them if you hear me. Write them if you can. They are the anchors that keep us from drifting into silence. The ground is alive under us. The silence is growing above us. But as long as we have names, as long as we keep speaking, we are not gone. This is Evan Rook in the basement of the library on 3rd Reading. Still here. Still speaking. Still waiting for the next voice to break the quiet. 12:45 p.m. now. The sun is high somewhere above the haze, but you wouldn't know it. The light coming through the stairwell door is yellow-white, like old paper. Dust has settled on the steps like flour. My fingers leave tracks in it when I open the door to check for notes. My name is Evan Rook, and I'm still speaking to you from the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. This is still 92.7 FM, maybe a flicker of 7:10 a.m. if the static isn't too heavy. The city above me has stopped sounding like a city. It sounds like a field after a harvest. Wind pushing dust, boards creaking, water dripping in a gutter with no roof above it. No sirens now, no engines. Only the occasional voice carried on the air from far away, then gone. I promised both. The long stories from people still reaching out, and the wide view of what's happening beyond our little patch of ground. So here it is. At 12:01, the copper line rang, and it was a man named Henry from the south side of Reading. His voice was dry and calm, like someone who's already been awake too long. He said he'd been sitting outside his parents' old house on a camping chair since dawn, watching the street tilt. The asphalt's rippling, he said. You can see it if you stare. Like the ocean on a calm day, just a slow rise and fall. He's been keeping his radio tuned to me since last night. He said, I don't think the houses on this street will be here by nightfall. He wanted me to say the names of his neighbors who stayed behind, Alma, Jace, and Miss Kay, who used to sweep her porch every morning at 7. Say their names, he said. Say them before the street swallows them. So I'm saying them. Alma, Jace, Miss Kay. At 12:17, a nurse named Amanda, yes, the same Amanda from the triage who called earlier, came to the library door. She was dust-covered, her hair tied back with a strip of cloth. She pressed her palm to the glass and said, I can't hold them anymore. She meant her patients. They've moved the triage again, this time to the soccer fields by Caldwell Park. No power, no running water. She said she'd come here because she had no more bandages and no more voices to calm the people she was trying to help. She left a slip of paper with the names of 4 patients she'd been treating. 2 elderly, 1 child, 1 man with a broken back. Read them, she said. If no one reads them, they're just numbers. Their names, Leonard, 83, Sarah, 76, Malik, age 10, Eric, 32, Their names are now in the air with us. And then, at 12:31, a call from a woman named Celine in Corning. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. She said she lives on a ranch off Highway 99, and this morning she watched her barn sink an inch at a time into the ground, like it was being lowered by invisible hands. She said she ran to the fence and looked back and saw the earth closing over it, slow and neat, leaving only the roofline visible. She stayed on the phone as she described it, and her voice never rose. Only when she finished did she start to cry. "It's like the land is hungry," she said. "It's eating what we built." That's the deep close-up, the stories carried here like driftwood. Now here's the wide view. From the ham bands, from faint signals, from the scraps of official chatter still bouncing off broken towers, I've pieced together a rough outline of what's happening beyond us. The whole Central Valley is fractured, roads broken, levees cracked, water flowing where it shouldn't. Reports of liquefaction in Sacramento and Stockton. Rumors, just rumors, of the Bay Bridge lanes slumped like ribbon into the water. No confirmation, but no denial either. Further south, Fresno has gone silent. One operator there said last night the downtown towers swayed for hours after the first big shock. Los Angeles is still sending out short automated messages from emergency towers, but no human voices behind them. If you turn your dial at night, you can sometimes catch them. A repeating tone, then the same 4 words. Shelter. Water. North. Over and over, in a loop. To the north, the Klamath area is cut off. No word from Mount Shasta since yesterday afternoon. People whisper about the dam at Oroville straining, about water creeping over the spillway, but all I have are fragments. No maps, no official channels, just rumors. And the darker the silence grows, the more these rumors crawl out to fill it. And yet, even as the grid breaks and the ground swallows roads, people are still moving, still reaching out, still leaving names for me to read, still building a map of what's left. Here are the names for this hour. Henry, watching his street ripple. Alma, Jace, and Miss Kay, his neighbors. Amanda, the nurse from triage. Leonard, Sarah, Malik, and Eric, her patients. Celine, watching her barn sink into the earth. Say them. Write them. Tape them to your walls. Whisper them if you're alone. They're alive if we keep them alive. I'm tired. I'm running on half a bottle of warm water and 1 meal bar from last night. My hands are shaking as I write these notes, but I'll keep speaking, because every time a voice cuts through the static, it feels like proof that something human is still standing on this ground. If you're listening, breathe. Check your footing. Put on shoes. Write down where you're going. Keep your loved ones' names visible. The earth is moving under us, but as long as we speak, as long as we hold each other's names, we're still here. This is Evan Rook, basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading, still on 92.7 FM, still speaking into the cracks, still holding the line until it snaps. 1:36 p.m. The sun is a pale smear above the haze, and the dust in the air makes everything look as though it's been dipped in sepia. The heat is climbing now, the kind of sticky warmth that rises after stone has been churned and broken. My name is still Evan Rook. I'm still here in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. This is 92.7 FM, maybe bleeding faintly onto 7:10 a.m. if the atmosphere is kind to us. I've just come back from standing on the library steps. The city looks wrong. The buildings still stand, some of them, but they don't sit straight. The lines of the streets no longer line up with where they should lead. 3rd Street doesn't point toward Market anymore. It wanders, dips, lifts, and the silence is thicker now. There are people, yes, but they move quieter, slower, as though the air itself is heavier to walk through. The last hour brought me voices, some steadier than mine, some broken. I'll give you all of them, because that's my duty now, to keep words alive where silence is trying to drown them. At 1:02, a man named Preston called from a payphone in Red Bluff that somehow still has a line. He said the whole northbound side of I-5 has fallen away in places, not just cracked, but sunk, like a table with a missing leg. He watched a line of cars crawl onto the southbound lanes, weaving past each other with headlights still on, though it's midday. He said he doesn't know if the southbound stretch is safe either. His voice kept tightening when he said he saw the line of brake lights stretching for miles, every driver hoping the ground beneath them holds one more hour. It's not a highway anymore, he said. It's a plank over the sea. He wanted me to say his wife's name because she's out there somewhere southbound. Anita. Anita, if you can hear this, Preston is alive, and he's looking for you. At 1:11, the copper line rang with a voice from Chico. A woman named Fern, maybe in her 60s. She said she lives near the old train yard, and last night she heard the rails singing. Not in the way a train makes them sing, but in long high notes that rose and fell like a bow pulled across strings. She said the sound shook her windows. She went outside and saw the steel twisted, pulled into a curve where it used to run straight. It was like the ground was playing its own instrument, she said. She asked me if anyone else has heard it. If you're near tracks and you have, leave a note. We're building a map of this new language the earth is speaking. At 1:19, a man named Omar from Corning broke through on handheld. He sounded breathless, like he'd been running. He said the grocery he'd been scavenging with neighbors suddenly dropped into the ground. Not all at once, not like a sinkhole. He said it was slow, steady, the building sagging while the roof stayed level, like an elevator descending. People screamed and scrambled out, but shelves, carts, all the food, all the lights, vanished below ground level. It was like the earth just swallowed it whole, he said. He didn't stay to watch where it went. He just ran. That's the close, human scale. Now let me widen it, because the signals I catch between the static are carrying darker pictures from beyond California. Around noon, I caught a faint, broken voice on a shortwave band. It was a ham operator in Nevada, voice cracking through interference. He said the casinos in Reno are rubble, glass, steel, lights, all torn apart. He said the interstate out of there is fractured. Then his voice vanished mid-word. I haven't heard him since. Someone else, relaying through Oregon, swore that Portland's bridges are gone. He said he saw one collapse into the Willamette. No way to confirm it. But the silence from that city matches. I can't raise any station from there now. Even farther, the faintest signals, barely there. I've heard mention of Seattle. One word repeated, harbor. I don't know if that means the harbor is safe, or if it means the harbor is gone. South of us, Los Angeles keeps sending those automated 4 words. Shelter. Water. North. Shelter. Water. North. But no human voice. No context. Just that machine tone, endlessly repeating. I don't know if anyone is even alive behind that loop. And then there's this rumor I can't shake. A man calling himself Hatch, the ham operator in Chico, swears he overheard guard chatter about Oroville Dam. He says they've lowered the water, fast, too fast, and they're afraid the foundation itself is cracked. If that dam fails, the valley below it will be underwater in hours. I don't know if it's true, but I'm telling you, because you deserve the chance to move, if you're anywhere near that basin. Every hour the map gets darker, and every hour the human voices get more fragile. But they still come. Here are the names I carry for this hour. Preston and Anita, searching for each other along I-5. Fern in Chico, hearing the rails sing. Omar, Corning, who ran from a sinking grocery. The nameless operator in Reno, voice lost in static. Whoever is trapped behind the automated loop in Los Angeles. Speak these names if you hear me. Write them if you have paper. Tape them to walls. They matter. And now I'll tell you the truth of me. My throat is raw from talking. My head aches from the generator's constant hum. I haven't eaten since yesterday evening, and the meal bar sits in my pocket, but I'm rationing it because hunger is better than silence. I keep pulling the photo of my nephew from my wallet, his little league team last summer, and I stare at it until the lines blur. He's in Vacaville. I don't know if he's safe. I don't know if Vacaville is even standing. And I keep speaking because if I stop, maybe no one else will say his name. This is Evan Rook, library basement, 3rd Street, Reading. Still on 92.7 FM. Still speaking into the quiet. Still holding the line until the earth takes it away. 1:55 p.m. now. The dust in the stairwell is thick enough that my footprints look like chalk marks on the concrete. The light outside has turned the color of weak tea, and when it moves across the wall, it bends like it's going through water. My name is still Evan Rook. I'm still sitting in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. This is still 92.7 FM, maybe a wavering thread on 7:10 a.m. I promised both. The long human-scale stories of people still clinging to the edges of this, and the wide picture as it leaks in from beyond California. I'll give you both now, because it's the only way to understand what's happening. At 1:41, the copper line rang, and it was a man named Victor from the outskirts of Reading. His voice was hoarse but clear. He said he was sitting in his truck at a stop sign on Hilltop when the ground began to ripple again, only this time it wasn't violent. It rose and fell like a wave in slow motion. He watched a row of streetlights tilt toward each other as though bowing. He said a man on a bicycle fell, tried to get up, and then just sat in the street with his hands on his head until the movement stopped. Victor told me he's been driving around with his dog, keeping the engine running, because the truck feels safer than any building. I never thought I'd be scared of the ground itself, he said, but I am. He asked me to read his wife's name, Angela, because she's somewhere up north and he hasn't heard from her. Angela, if you're listening, Victor is alive. At 1:46, a young woman named Karina from Chico broke through on handheld. She said she and her sister were walking along a cracked bike path near the creek when they heard a low humming, like a transformer, only deeper. She said the water in the creek started moving backwards, upstream, as though being pulled. They both ran. It felt like the earth was breathing under us, she said, like it was drawing in a breath to speak. She asked me to say their names, Karina and her sister Maria. And at 1:50, a farmer named Luis from south of Red Bluff called. He said his irrigation ditch is gone, just gone. It collapsed overnight into a deep, narrow trench. He tried to look into it with a flashlight, but the beam just vanished. It's like staring into nothing, he said. No bottom. No sound. He wanted me to read his children's names in case they're still out there. Javier and Lucia. Those are the close stories, carried here like pebbles in a flood. Now the wide view between the static on the ham bands, faint voices are bleeding in from outside the state. A trucker out of Salt Lake City said the Wasatch Front has been hit, roads cracked, downtown buildings leaning. He swears the Great Salt Lake is receding fast, as though being pulled into the ground. Another operator in Boise said the bridges over the Snake River are closed, and the state police are gone from their posts. He said he's seen people walking the highways, carrying children, heading toward the mountains. A faint signal from New Mexico last night. Just a man breathing hard into a mic, saying Albuquerque is burning. No context, no details. Just that sentence over and over, like he was trying to convince himself it was real. And then there's the East. No direct word from New York or Washington, but a Boston operator said the subways are shut, and the water in the harbor rose and fell twice in an hour, with no tide to explain it. He said the ferry piers cracked like ice. His signal cut out mid-report. Everything we knew about where safe ground is has become a rumor. The map of the country is a question mark now. And yet, amid all of this, voices still reach me. Names still arrive on scraps of paper under the library door. The boy who wrote Marissa came back today at 1:30. He pressed his hand to the glass and whispered, "She's still missing," before running off. I'm saying her name again. Marissa. Here are the names for this hour. Victor and Angela. Karina and Maria. Luis, Javier, and Lucia. Marissa. The unnamed man in Salt Lake City. The voice from Albuquerque. The operator from Boston. Write them down. Speak them if you can. They are proof we are still here, even as the ground rewrites everything under us. I'm tired. My voice is rough. My hands are black with dust from opening the stairwell door. But as long as the generator hums, as long as the antenna holds, I'll keep speaking names and fragments of the truth. This is Evan Rook in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. Still on 92.7 FM. Still speaking into the cracks. Still holding the line until it breaks. 2:42 p.m. The dust outside is thicker than smoke now. It clings to my teeth, to my skin, to the notebooks stacked on this desk. The sun hasn't shown itself since morning. It's just a pale blur, like someone smeared chalk across the sky. My name is Evan Rook, and this is still 92.7 FM from the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. If you can hear me at all, hold on to it, because each hour feels like the last one I'll be able to speak. I want to give you a story that came through about an hour ago. Not rumor, not half-heard signals. A grounded story of what the quake has done to real streets, real houses, real people. At 2:06, a man named James from Anderson got through on the copper line. His voice was slow, like he was measuring every word. He told me about his street, Maple Lane, a quiet road that had always been steady, never even flooded in winter storms. He said yesterday morning, after the first big shock, the asphalt buckled, but didn't break. By noon, cracks were running along both sides of the street like veins, and by sunset, the whole block had tilted downhill. His neighbor's house shifted so much that the front porch pulled away from the siding. This morning, James said, the real collapse came. The ground under Maple Lane gave way in one long, grinding roar. Half the street dropped, houses, cars, trees, everything, down into a jagged cut that opened where there used to be a drainage ditch. He said he stood there and watched the roof of his neighbor's house fold as it slid into the cut, shingles popping off like broken teeth. He said the sound was worse than the sight. Wood snapping, glass shattering, pipes bursting all at once. It was like a whole neighborhood screaming. he told me. He tried to pull people out. He got 2 kids clear, handed them to a woman running past. But then another tremor shook the ground and he had to step back. I could feel the pavement under me wanting to go too, he said. And I thought, if I fall in, there won't be anyone left to tell what happened here. He said he doesn't know how many people are gone now. Too many. He kept repeating the same sentence. The street just isn't there anymore. Before he hung up, James gave me the names of those he saw last, his neighbors who vanished into that cut. He said to read them, so the ground doesn't keep them all. Their names, Carol, Timothy, and little Jonah. That's the truth of what the quake is doing. Not abstract, not rumor. Streets vanishing, houses folding, families swallowed whole. If you're hearing this, if you're anywhere near Anderson, stay away from Maple Lane. The ground is not done. It doesn't just crack. It gives way all at once. And if you see the pavement tilt, don't stand there to watch it. Move. Here are the names for this hour. James, survivor on Maple Lane. Carol, Timothy, and Jonah, his neighbors, lost to the ground. Say them. Write them. Let them live in the air a little longer. This is Evan Rook, in the basement of the library on 3rd, still speaking, still carrying voices, even as the ground keeps trying to take them away. 3:37 p.m. The generator is coughing harder now, but it's still alive, still pushing this signal out through the dust. My name is Evan Rook. I'm in the basement of the old library on 3rd Street, Reading. You're tuned to 92.7 FM, maybe scraping me in the static around 7:10 a.m. if the air hasn't swallowed it yet. I've got another grounded story for you, one that makes my hands shake as I write it down. This came at 3:09 from a woman named Deirdre in Shasta Lake. Her voice was thin, cracked, but steady enough to get the picture across. She said yesterday afternoon, after the first big shock, she and her neighbors gathered in the cul-de-sac out front, thinking it would be safer than their houses. The asphalt was cracked, but still solid. They brought chairs, blankets, some food. They decided to wait it out together. This morning, Deirdre told me, the earth opened underneath them. Not a sinkhole, not a trench. She said the cul-de-sac itself folded. Like the pavement was a rug being pulled out, she said. The whole circle dropped at once, the center falling faster than the edges. Cars rolled in first, then a streetlight, then a woman's stroller. She screamed when she realized her baby was still in it. Deirdre said she and 2 others tried to grab the stroller, but the ground pitched again, and they had to step back. She said she will never forget the sound of that scream as the stroller slid into the dark. When the quake passed, the cul-de-sac was a hole, wide, deep, echoing. The baby was gone. 3 cars, gone. The streetlight, gone. She said the edges kept cracking as they watched, and finally they ran. I left my chair. I left my bag. I left everything, she told me. I just couldn't stand there anymore. Her last words before the line went dead were, "The street ate us. It ate us." I've written the names she gave me of those who lived there. I'll read them now. Mary Ann and her baby, Tyler. Chris, who tried to hold the stroller. Deirdre herself, still alive, still moving. That's the quake. Not a headline, not a number. Streets folding, swallowing, erasing. And it isn't just Shasta Lake. A man named Gordon, who's been checking in from Bella Vista, left another message. He said his field is split so wide now that half his cattle are on one side, half on the other. He can't cross. He can't bring them back together. The ground stole half my herd, he said, and I don't think I'll ever see them again. In Red Bluff, A teenager named Eric left a note at the library door. It said simply, "Our school fell." No details, no names, just that. And further south, faint signals through the ham bands keep painting the wider picture. Fresno is dark. Los Angeles still loops those 4 words. Shelter. Water. North San Francisco. Silent. Sacramento. Nothing but static. Reno. Gone. Portland. Rumored bridges in the river. Seattle. Only whispers of harbor. The map is breaking piece by piece. But here, in this little room with dust settling on my notes, I still hear voices. I still collect names, and I'll keep saying them until the generator quits or the floor gives way. For this hour, the names are Deirdre, survivor from Shasta Lake. Marianne and Tyler lost to the cul-de-sac. Chris, who tried to hold the stroller. Gordon, Bella Vista, herd split by the earth. Eric, Red Bluff, whose school is gone. Say them out loud if you hear me. Write them. Don't let them vanish into the cracks. This is Evan Rook in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Redding. Still here. Still speaking. Still telling you that the quake isn't finished with us. 4:29 p.m. The generator is sputtering, but it's still giving me just enough to keep the mic hot and the signal climbing out of this basement. My name is Evan Rook, and you're still tuned to 92.7 FM if you're close, maybe 7:10 AM if you're lucky and far. I'm in the library on 3rd Street, Redding, and the world outside hasn't stopped moving. The quake stories keep coming, and each one feels heavier than the last. These aren't numbers on a news crawl. These are neighborhoods breaking under people's feet. At 4:03, a call came through from a woman named Rachel in Cottonwood. She said she had been staying in her mother's house, single story, ranch style, the kind built in the 70s. It had cracks after the first shock, but the roof still held. Last night, she put her children to sleep on the living room floor because she didn't trust the bedrooms. Then, before dawn, the ground gave a sudden lurch, and the whole house slid 6 feet off its foundation. "It was like the earth shoved us sideways," she said. Cabinets burst open, glass shattered, and the walls pulled away from the roof, so daylight poured in through the seams. She grabbed her kids and ran barefoot into the yard. She hasn't gone back inside since. She wanted me to say her children's names, Sophie and Ben. Sophie and Ben, your mother Rachel kept you alive. At 4:12, the copper line rang with a man named Daniel from Anderson. He works nights, he said, stocking shelves at a big box store. Yesterday, as the shocks hit, he and a few others tried to hold up an aisle rack that had begun to tip. They managed for a moment, but when the aftershock came, the entire line of shelves collapsed like dominoes. He described the sound, steel and glass, rolling thunder in a box. He said he crawled out with cuts on his arms and saw one of his co-workers pinned under a beam. They couldn't move it. He was alive, Daniel told me, his voice breaking. We had to leave him calling out. He gave me his name to read, Marcus, 24. At 4:18, a note slid under the library door, written in pencil on a torn piece of a cereal box. Half of Market Street gone. Asphalt peeled back like paper. 2 blocks of cars tilted into the cut, no signature. Just those words. And at 4:21, a girl's voice came through on handheld. Soft, almost drowned by static. She said her name was Lacey. She was calling from a farm road outside Red Bluff. She said her family's house is tilted so far they can't stand inside anymore, so they're sleeping in the barn. She said the barn roof groans at night, but it feels safer than the house. Every time the earth moves, she whispered, The horses start crying. Then the line went dead. That's the ground truth of it. Streets opening, houses sliding, barns bending, lives balanced on the edge of a crack. Now, the wider collapse. Through the static at 4 a.m., I caught a ham relay out of Idaho. A man said Boise has shut down entirely. The bridges over the Snake River are unstable, and people are camping on the north side with no way across. His words: "The city's cut in half, and no one's coming to fix it." A faint operator from Arizona said Phoenix felt shaking this morning. Light, but enough to shatter windows in high-rises. He said people there are leaving the downtown towers, camping in parking lots. He said the power grid is unstable across the desert. And further east, a woman's voice broke in from Chicago. She spoke fast, scared. She said skyscrapers are swaying, and the subway tunnels are flooding. Her last words before the line went silent: "It's not stopping here either." So this isn't just California. It's spreading. It's the crust itself shifting under everything we built. Here are the names for this hour. Rachel, with Sophie and Ben, house shifted off its foundation. Daniel, survivor of the store collapse. Marcus, pinned, last seen alive under the shelves. Lacey, farm road outside Red Bluff. The unnamed writer from Market Street. The voices from Boise, Phoenix, Chicago. Say them, write them, hold them. They are what's left of us. This is Evan Rook. Basement of the library on 3rd Reading. Still speaking as long as the generator will cough out its breath. 5:31 p.m. now. The light coming through the stairwell door has turned orange-brown, the kind of light you'd expect before a firestorm, not on a quiet afternoon. The dust is so heavy, it hangs like fog. My name is Evan Rook, and you're still hearing me on 92.7 FM from the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. Maybe you're catching me through the static on 7:10 a.m., if the air lets it bend that far. The generator is still running, though the cough in its voice grows worse each hour. This last stretch has been nothing but raw voices, and I think that's the only way to tell you what's happening. These are people I've heard, names I've written, moments carved into the dark. At 5:04, a man named Curtis called from a payphone in Red Bluff that still carries a line. His story shook me. He said yesterday, when the first big shock rolled through, he was driving his wife to the grocery store. The ground split beneath the car. Not enough to swallow it, but enough that one wheel hung in space. They scrambled out, shaking, and he left the car behind. This morning, he went back to check. He said the crack had widened overnight. Where his car had been, there was nothing but a void. He dropped a brick into it and never heard it hit bottom. His wife told him to stop looking. She said the earth doesn't want to be measured anymore, he told me. He gave me their names, Curtis and June. At 5:12, a boy named Eli got through on handheld from Anderson. He couldn't have been more than 15. He said the high school football field had collapsed into a bowl overnight. The bleachers are half buried. The scoreboard hangs at an angle, buzzing when the wind catches it. He said kids had been sheltering there after their houses cracked, and when the ground gave way, some of them fell in. He saw 2 climb back up, but others didn't. His last words before static cut him off were, "It was our field. Now it's a hole." At 5:19, a woman named Gloria slipped a note under the library door. She wrote in shaking cursive, "The ground opened under the nursing home. Half the building gone. I don't know how many are inside." That's all she wrote. And at 5:25, a man named Rodney called in from Bella Vista. He was in his barn when the quake shook again. He said he heard the sound before he felt it. A long, grinding roar, like metal dragged over stone. The barn rafters swayed, dust fell like snow, and then one of his walls buckled outward. He ran outside, just as the roof caved in. He told me, voice low, "I built that barn with my father 40 years ago. Now it's lying in the dirt like it never mattered." He asked me to read his name, because he doesn't know if anyone else will remember him. Rodney, Bella Vista. That's the ground truth here in Northern California. Streets gone, fields swallowed, barns folding, entire buildings erasing themselves from memory. Now, the wider collapse. At 5 a.m., I caught a faint, broken relay from Oregon. A woman said the Columbia River has risen out of its banks near Portland. She said bridges are twisted, shipping yards silent, and downtown empty. Her last words before her signal cracked. The river is eating the city. Farther east, an operator in Denver came through on shortwave, voice shaking. He said tremors hit the Front Range this morning. Skyscrapers swayed, and he saw glass fall in sheets. He said the mountains themselves seemed to groan. He repeated one line again and again. It feels like the Rockies are hollow. And from the East Coast, barely audible, through static, a faint voice out of Philadelphia. She said the ground shook for only seconds, but water mains burst across the city. It sounded like gunfire all night, she said. Then silence. The map of this country is bleeding at its edges. Cities are dimming one by one, and the silence between signals is growing longer. Here are the names for this hour. Curtis and June, Red Bluff. Eli Anderson, who saw his field collapse. Gloria, witness to the nursing home. Rodney, Bella Vista. Barn gone. The woman in Portland. The man in Denver. The voice from Philadelphia. Say them. Write them. They are what stand between us and silence. This is Evan Rook, in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. Still speaking, still writing, still carrying these names into the air. 6:42 p.m. The generator sounds like a smoker's lungs now. Wheezing, catching, pushing out just enough to keep this station alive. The basement smells like fuel and dust, and the only light I've got is the glow off the transmitter and the thin streak of sickly orange sneaking in through the stairwell window. My name is Evan Rook. I'm still here, still alive, still sending what scraps of truth I can through 92.7 FM, and, if the air bends the right way, a faint hum on 7:10 a.m. I need to talk to you, all of you who can still hear me, because the quake isn't just a disaster anymore. It's a condition. It's like the world itself caught something it can't shake off, and we're inside it, breathing it, breaking under it. When I walked upstairs at 6 sharp to check the steps, I saw something that's been chewing at me since. 3rd Street doesn't look like a street anymore. It's a series of tilted slabs, each one angled like a broken jaw. Cars are stranded halfway into cracks, noses down, trunks in the air. One of them is a school bus, painted yellow but dimmed by the dust. The front half of it is gone. The back half sticks out of the earth like a flag. There are shoes in the gutter beside it. Just shoes, no people. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at them. At 6:11, the copper line rang, and it was an older man named Joseph from Cottonwood. He told me his house split in two this morning. Not down the middle, but diagonally, like someone took a knife and shaved it apart. One half slid down the hill, the other stayed standing. He was inside when it happened. He said he had to climb out through what used to be his kitchen window because the door frame was now 2 feet off the ground. "It's like I'm living inside a photograph that got torn," he said. He asked me to say his wife's name because she was still inside when the quake hit. Margaret. Joseph crawled out, but Margaret didn't. He said her name 3 times before the line went dead. I'm saying it now, as many times as it takes. Margaret. Margaret. At 6:19, I heard from a girl named Haley in Anderson. She sounded barely older than a teenager. She said she was walking down Bowman Road when the ground started humming. Not shaking. Humming. A vibration that made her knees wobble. She said the asphalt rippled like a slow wave, and the power poles along the road bowed toward each other until their lines touched and sparked. She said she ran into a ditch and covered her ears, but the sound was inside her chest, not her head. She said she could feel her heartbeat stutter, as if the earth itself had taken control of her pulse. Then it stopped, and the silence was worse than the hum. She asked me to read her brother's name, Caleb, because she hasn't seen him since yesterday. "Caleb, if you're alive, Haley is waiting." And then there was the note. At 6:26, someone slipped a folded page under the library door. No name, no return address, just 4 words in thick black ink. "The water is gone." That's all. I don't know who wrote it or where they saw it, but the handwriting was smeared, like the pencil had been wet. I've been holding that page in my hand for 10 minutes now, staring at those words. The water is gone. Now let me widen the lens, because it's not just us here in Northern California. The fragments I'm catching from other bands are painting a picture that feels too big to hold. At 6 o'clock sharp, I caught a faint signal out of Nevada. A man shouting into a mic, voice breaking, saying the Hoover Dam is cracked. He said the Colorado River is foaming at its base, white and violent. His last words before static swallowed him were, "The dam is bleeding." Minutes later, another operator, this one from Oregon, said the Columbia River has risen high enough to drown parts of Portland's waterfront. He said bridges that still stand are sagging in the middle, cables pulled loose like strings. He said people are camping on rooftops, burning anything that will catch for heat. Then his signal vanished. I even caught a voice out of Texas, a woman gasping for breath saying, "Houston shook this morning, buildings swayed, and glass towers broke like sugar." She said she doesn't trust the ground anymore, that it feels soft, like it's waiting to let go. She repeated the same word 3 times before static erased her. Sinking, sinking, sinking. And east of here, silence. I can't raise Washington. I can't raise New York. I can't raise anything in between. Only scraps, only fragments, only names whispered through static before vanishing. And yet, in the middle of all this silence, we still have names. Names to speak. Names to hold. Here are the ones I've written for this hour. Joseph and Margaret. Cottonwood. A house torn in half. Haley and Caleb. Anderson. Separated by humming earth. Whoever wrote "the water is gone." The man shouting about Hoover Dam. The operator in Portland, watching the river rise. The woman in Houston, whispering sinking. Say them, write them. If you're alone, whisper them anyway. They're the last thread tying us together. I won't lie. I'm tired. My throat feels like sand. My hands won't stop shaking. I keep staring at the picture of my nephew in his little league uniform, and I wonder if Vacaville is still standing, if he's still laughing somewhere, or if the earth has already taken him too. But I'll keep talking, because as long as someone, somewhere, hears my voice, then we're not finished. This is Evan Rook, in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. Still on 92.7 FM. Still carrying your names into the dark. Still speaking as long as this generator wheezes and the ground doesn't swallow me whole. 7:41 p.m. The generator rattles like a loose rib cage, but it's still humming, still carrying me out into the dust-choked air. My name is Evan Rook. I'm in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading. If you're hearing me, you've found 92.7 FM, maybe just a ghost of me drifting through 7:10 a.m. if the interference is kind. It's evening now, though the sky doesn't look like evening. No sunset colors, no blue fading into stars, just a smear of dirty orange that fades to brown at the horizon. Dust rides the air like smoke. When I push open the stairwell door, it coats my tongue like grit, makes me cough until I see spots. The silence out there is thicker than this dust. I've got stories for you, stories that feel like stones in my chest. At 7:06, the copper line rang. A man named Arthur from Anderson spoke in a voice so steady it scared me. He said his whole street has tilted, not just cracked, but lifted at one end like a giant wedge. Cars can't move up it anymore. They slide back down, scraping their frames on the asphalt. He said his neighbor tried to drive anyway, and the car rolled, flipping once before landing on its roof in the ditch. Arthur said he tried to help, but the earth gave another low rumble, and the ditch walls started crumbling. I had to leave them in there, he said. The ground didn't want me to take them back. He asked me to speak their names, Patrick and Elise. At 7:18, a woman named Meredith from Red Bluff called. She said she had been in her kitchen when the quake hit again, sudden and sharp. The cupboards flew open, dishes smashed, and the refrigerator tipped. She ran outside barefoot and saw her street broken into 3 sections, one higher, one lower, one leaning sideways. It looks like stairs now, she said, only they don't lead anywhere. She told me her husband fell trying to climb over one of those ledges. She pulled him up, scraped and bleeding, but alive. She asked me to say his name, Jonah. Meredith and Jonah, still alive on a staircase street. At 7:29, I got a weak signal from a boy in Cottonwood named Travis. He said the grocery store that still had food yesterday is gone. Not looted, gone. The building itself sank halfway into the ground, shelves and all, leaving a jagged hole in the lot. He said people were standing at the edge, looking down into it, not speaking. One man threw a rock in, and it didn't make a sound when it landed. If it landed. Travis's last words before static ate the line. The hole doesn't end. And at 7:36, a scrap of notebook paper slipped under the door, written in block letters. The bridge on 273 is gone. That's the road south. If you're thinking of moving that way, you can't. The bridge is gone. That's what the quake is doing here. Tilting streets, tearing neighborhoods into staircases, sinking buildings whole. Now I'll widen out, because the voices I'm catching beyond California are painting a picture of a whole country unraveling. At 7:10, I caught a faint ham operator from Las Vegas. He said the strip is in darkness. Hotels cracked, signs fallen. He said the Luxor pyramid has split down one side, the glass panels raining down in sheets. He kept repeating, "The lights are gone. The lights are gone." At 7:22, a relay out of Colorado Springs said the Air Force Base shook hard this morning. He said runways cracked, hangars twisted, planes unusable. His voice was low, heavy. He said, "If the ground is breaking here, there is nowhere safe left." And at 7:34, a whisper of a voice from New Orleans bled through the static. A woman, coughing hard, saying the levees are cracked. She said water is seeping through, slow but steady. She said people are already leaving the low ground, climbing rooftops again, just like before. Her last words, "It's coming back." Then silence. The quake isn't local anymore. It isn't regional. It's national. Maybe even more than that. The ground itself is speaking in a language of collapse. And we're too small to answer. Here are the names for this hour. Arthur, Patrick, and Elise, Anderson. Meredith and Jonah, Red Bluff. Travis, Cottonwood. The anonymous hand that wrote the bridge on 273 is gone. The voice from Las Vegas, whispering the lights are gone. The operator from Colorado Springs. The coughing woman from New Orleans. Say them, write them, hold them. They are the only map we have left. I'm tired. My voice is raw. My notebook is half filled with dust-streaked names. But I'll keep talking, because silence is worse than hunger, worse than thirst, worse than fear. This is Evan Rook, in the basement of the library on 3rd Street, Reading, still speaking into the cracks, still on 92.7 FM, still alive, for now.